name of Councillor Deirdre Heaney. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cathaoirleach. The reason that I've put down this motion about the cycle path on the cycleway on Griffith Avenue, I suppose, is there's two reasons. One, there's an issue there. There seems to be a lack of use of the infrastructure, and secondly, residents on Griffith Avenue who are both, I suppose, cyclists themselves and users of the avenue, be it on foot or otherwise. And I note in the report, in the response to the report manager, that there is data being collected around the use of the cycleway. And I just wonder if there is any possibility, say from a collaborative approach between all of us here and all of the users or non-users as the case may be, if there's any possibility of taking data of the people who are using the footpath to cycle. Now, I do know that there's an issue during the months of October, November, December with leaves, etc. I'm aware of that. But there is an issue around, one, people using the footpath because they feel that the cycle lane is not safe. Personally speaking, I cycle. I don't cycle, you know, I'm not somebody who cycles 24/7, but I do use my bike to cycle to family and events locally. And personally, I find the cycleway on that part of Griffith Avenue that I use, I find it uncomfortable myself, so I don't actually cycle on it. I avoid that part. But I'm not an expert on cycleway design, but I do know that there are people who are cyclists and who are involved in I suppose, in engineering, that feel that this cycleway is substandard. So for whatever reason, there's problems. There is a problem there. And I just wonder, can we, Chair, do two things? One, continue to measure the use, which I know the report says is increasing. I don't know whether or how that compares to other cycleways in the city, but I'd like to know how those figures of cyclists using the cycle path on Griffith Avenue compares with, say, the use of other cycleways in the city, and how the design fits in or compares with, say, the cycleway that is part of the Clontarf City Centre cycleway project. How does it compare? I really do think that there is a problem there, you know, and I think we need to look at resolving it, because people come to all of us in the Clontarf ward anyway with pros and cons about it, but there is something wrong, and there's no point in saying, sorry, Chair, there's no point in telling us that it's all is okay or blaming it on leaves, because leaves are only there 3 months of the year. There is a problem with that cycle path, and I really think we need to collaborate in a positive way to try and find solutions to it. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor O'Farrell, followed by Councillor Murray.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Councillor Heaney for bringing this motion forward. I mean, she's very interested in safety for cyclists and for pedestrians and school children in this area. She has been since for a number of years, and she put a lot of input into this. When the cycleway was first being built, she was very concerned about safety. You know, and a question I'd like to ask: the road safety audit number 3, which road safety audit number 3 would be complete on completion, and I want to know, have all the recommendations for the road safety audit number 3, have all those recommendations been completed, and was there ever a road safety audit number 4, which is on completion? So in the early stages of a completion of a road project, they have a road safety audit 4. And I'm wondering, was that ever instigated, and what were the results of that? And if it hasn't been, I think with the agreement of the committee that there should be one, because we have problems in this area. We have problems for cyclists that it's not safe. The leaves issue, this was pointed out at the beginning. It was possibly too narrow for getting equipment in. What's happening now is, such is the use of the footpaths, and is that the leaves are being compacted in, and with wet, it's like an ice rink. So it needs to be manually removed with shovels. That's the type of, the equipment doesn't really move, it just moves the top layer of leaves, which is leaving sort of the ice sort of underneath. There's been quite a lot of accidents, and it was written in a cycling magazine, or I got a reply from the guy, he's an editor, about were these reported to the guards. Quite a lot of pedestrian accidents aren't reported to the guards involving cyclists or pedestrians, maybe children. They're not criminal sort of offences, you know, they don't really be reported to the guard. But I know 3 residents in one short area, and one lady got, she's still having skin grafts to her calf at the moment. She was on the footpath just going across from her door to the road, and her calf was effectively taken off by a bike. And a neighbour near hers broke her hip there in the last 3 or 4 weeks. And then further down near the Marino School, another hip. Like, there's quite a lot of fear among particularly elderly pedestrians, and not just residents on the road. People are using the footpath generally. And there needs to be possibly more education for cyclists using the footpath, maybe to give way, because they're the more vulnerable people, are the pedestrians. And I think something should come out of the active travel budget. There should be quite more budget should be put into education. I think in England maybe 10% of the active travel budget goes towards education. I'd say it's not the case in Ireland. And maybe some of that budget also should come into safety.
Okay.
And if cycle lanes need some safety work afterwards, that should come out of the active travel budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Murray, followed by Councillor Cooney.
Thanks, Carla. I see very little wrong with the cycleway on Griffith Avenue. The main challenge, Carla, is the fact that it's a tree-lined avenue with 2 rows of trees, and everything has to be fitted in around obviously the residential sides, and then those 2 rows of trees. And people are very attached to those trees. So that's a kind of a design constraint. And then you have the road. So you're limited in terms of what you can do. It's not a greenfield site. And to be fair, a lot of work and a lot of iterative consultation went into it. And not everybody was happy with it. I accept that. I mean, there are issues with some of it. There were issues with some of it. But there's really very little else we can do because of the space that's available, I believe. There is an issue with people cycling on the footpath. There's no doubt about that. Particularly younger people going to school. It's one thing to have people who are learning to cycle going east of Charlemont there, but if you have a group of 3 or 4 cyclists, teenagers coming at you, it is intimidating. So we do need to square up to that and deal with it. They shouldn't be on the footpath. But again, they've been there as long as I've been walking out Griffith Avenue. It's not today nor yesterday that people have been cycling on it. So there's a mindset change needed there. The leaves is an issue that was there before the cycleway went in and will be there as long as those trees are there, Cathaoirleach. So, and yes, we can do better in terms of clearing the leaves, but there's a period of the year, every year, for 3 to 4 weeks where we're going to be overwhelmed with those leaves because of the trees. And it's not a whole lot we can do other than clear them. So I think if we could concentrate our efforts on encouraging people that are cycling on the footpath and shouldn't be cycling on the footpath to consider using the cycleway and keep it clear, we'd be doing everybody a good service. And by the way, this idea that nobody uses, I'm on that cycleway every morning down with Quillen to school and back the other way. So there are people using that cycleway. It's gradually going up. Not everybody is supportive of it, but that's life. So I think we should, as Councillor Heaney has mentioned, we should concentrate some resources on encouraging people, probably through the schools, not to be cycling on the footpath, and we'd be doing everybody a good service. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cooney.
Yeah, well, I'm delighted we have a cycleway here. I think I put down the motion looking for this cycleway and the one on Collins Avenue. And I was delighted that we went ahead and did it. The design process took in relation a lot of people on the road, and users and people living on the road, and the schools, and even DCU and everything, because there's a lot of people using that cycleway. The leaves are a big issue, and they're piled up. I saw clear pavements and bags and bags and bags of leaves, but piles and piles of leaves on the cycleway, and I was coming down myself, say, in a cargo bike that was quite road, like, you know, heavy and things like that. But if you were on a lighter bike or something like that, it could be quite dangerous. You could really slip on it, and I wouldn't expect little kids to be cycling on it if that's the case. You know, parents are you know, safety, and you know, I think people expect sometimes little kids to be, you know, to be on a pavement, you know, if they're only learning and they're a little bit wobbly on their bikes and things like that. What the biggest danger for me, and I've just put another complaint in this morning because I'm getting reports all the time, is the cars driving still at the end of Griffith Avenue opposite the school and driving on the pavement, parking on the pavement, backing into somebody's driveway there the other week with a woman coming out with a toddler and a little newborn baby, and a car backed up her driveway and she's trying to walk out. And, you know, if I think that people shouldn't be cycling dangerously on the pavement, but the bigger issue here is people driving. You know, if you've got a car driving on your pavement, that's, you know, that's a danger. And that's still happening. And I had hoped that the cycleway would prevent that. And I think because of the driveways and things that happen there, we may be looking at a design solution, but definitely much more enforcement solution, because people are still driving. I'm hoping the schools will go out with the notice. I got another email this morning which also included the principals. I hope the schools will go out with a notice asking their parents. I know one school did. There was some instance to ask the parents not to, because looking at the surveys and looks at things, most people live within 2 kilometres of the schools there, and you know the kids can be walked to school and after school. But if they're going along pavements that people are driving on, you know, you can see why it's a self-defeating issue. But I think that's something that we really need to be taking concern of is the driving on the pavements.
Thanks, Councillor. Just colleagues, just to be brief, you know, we have another 8 motions on top. I want to get this meeting completed. Just if we need an extension, just to be agreed, we extend the meeting to at least 1:30. Is that agreed? Agreed. Okay.
Can I hear that? Just to advise you that Ray Yates and Kelly Hickey will be joining us
now.
Also.
Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you.
Councillor Stocker, followed by Councillor Gillilan and Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you, Chair. And sorry I wasn't able to come into the chamber today. I have a sick child home. I am just going to say, in relation to the Griffith Avenue cycleway, there are obviously a lot of issues at play here, but I am a little bit worried about kind of safety concerns being used as a detractor from positive developments. So in the main, the cycleway seems very well used to me, to be perfectly honest, and I'm up and down that way every day because it falls on my children's school route. There are some issues that need addressing. We need more resources. The leaf fall, the period of time in which that happens is very, very predictable, and we need to be able to dedicate more resources in that brief period of time to tackling that, because it is raised all the time as making the actual cycleway unsafe. I have seen residents blowing leaves from the footpaths onto the cycleway. So that is also an issue and a concern, brushing and blowing leaves onto it. I would hope we can find some way to stop people doing that. And then in addition, there are still cycle markings on the footpath, as far as I can visually remember, there on Griffith Avenue up towards Ardscoil Reach. So if we're serious about stopping people cycling on the footpath, it might be an idea to remove those. I do think with some of the schools, part of it is that you have young lads coming out who want to cycle 2 or 3 abreast, having come out of school to chat to each other, and that's a social thing. I don't know that it's necessarily the worst thing in the world. I think that a lot of the rest of the time the cycle path is used appropriately. It's unfortunate we couldn't make it wider to facilitate that, or have a 2-way cycle track on one side of the road, which would have facilitated that. And maybe that's something we can look to further down the line. I've engaged quite a lot with Go Slow and Marino, who are mainly interested in trying to allow their children to walk to school, primarily in Vincent's, safely. And it is most certainly the car behaviour and traffic behaviour that they complain about in terms of safety, rather than the cyclist behaviour. But yeah, I think there is no harm in an education campaign that perhaps targets faster cyclists on footpaths who are definitely a worry for, say, elderly people who have mobility issues and feel worried. I've an 83-year-old mother who's very scared of it, so I do understand that. So there are kind of multiple pieces there, but I don't think we should say that the cycleway is not used, because it is used. And I mean, I've had people tell me on the doors it isn't as well, but I see it on a daily basis. It most definitely is. So yeah, thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, followed by Councillor O'Toole.
Just really quickly, this issue around the interaction between pedestrians, cyclists and motorists have been raised previously. And I know, I can't remember when we had a motion on it, but I do know as far as I know, the After Travel units are putting together an awareness campaign to promote cyclists being more considerate of pedestrians, motor vehiclists and bus drivers being more considerate of cyclists, etc. So I think, as far as I know, that is in train, but you might clarify that if Deirdre is in the room.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor O'Toole.
Thanks, Cahir. Yeah, I'm interested in listening to what the local councillors are saying about this. And as a cyclist and a member of the Transport Committee, I have a special interest in it. I haven't been down Griffith Avenue for some time. I certainly haven't cycled on it for a long time. I will take a trip down there one of the mornings just to have a look, because, you know, if you're saying that the cycling is not safe, I don't understand that, but I'll have a look. Now, cycling on footpaths, it's a peril. I know that, especially nowadays with mopeds and scooter things and all of that, and people going at speed. Now, where there is no cycle path, I do occasionally have to go on the footpath in certain quarters, but not great speed. You know, I'd be very careful and always give way. I know one little patch where I use a footpath. I go up on the grass to let the pedestrians walk by, but not everyone does that. The Transport Committee, yes, who mentioned it? Alison mentioned it, that there is resources being put into an awareness campaign about all of this. I think that, you know, when we put down cycle tracks, I think it takes a while before people get into their mindset that this is good, I'll use this, you know, and I think that's where we have to persevere. But I'm more interested in the irresponsible cycling. People, you could put down whatever you like. You could put down airport runways for them, and they'll still be irresponsible. But I think it's up to us then to get the message out. But I definitely think if we keep pursuing this program, and I support it, and it's well worth doing, I reckon we certainly will bring the cycling population in the city way up. Now, I've been in a couple of places where cycling is. I was in one city where cycling is actually probably the prime transport for getting people around in the city centre. It's like a train going along. Hundreds of people just cycling away there. Now, we're a long way from that, but we have to try and get there. But I appreciate the concerns of the local councillors here. You know, there does seem to be issues. There's no doubt about it. And look, I'm no expert, but I'll take a dander down there some morning. So, Deirdre, if you see something flashing by you there, it'll be me.
Thanks, Councillor. Manager. This is the comment.
Sorry, I missed the comment. Is Deirdre Kelly there from Active Travel section? In response to
Hi,
yeah, I'm here. So I work in I work in the traffic section here in DCC. So yeah, I suppose the main thing to note is that we've seen an increase in the number of people using the cycle lane on Griffith Avenue, and we have over 12,000 users over the last few months. We expect this to continue to rise. In terms of collecting data on the footpath, that's not something that we have for Griffith Avenue footpaths at the moment, but I can bring it to the team here and see what's possible. I suppose in terms of what we hear back from people cycling on the footpath, if it's, I think speakers have already said that often it is school students cycling together with their friends after school or on their way to school. We've been in touch with the schools in the area to ask them, well, firstly, to acknowledge that it's great to see their students cycling to school, and to like that's the behavior we want to see. So that's really positive. And then we've asked the schools to ask their students to use the cycle lanes, and offered support and asked them, is there anything we can do to help students to use the cycle lanes instead of the footpaths. So I suppose we're waiting to hear back from schools to see if there's supports that they need, and we're happy to help out with that where we can. My colleague Alec Dunton here is on the call as well, so he's on the engineering side, so there might be some in terms of the road safety audit and other questions. I don't have the information on that, but he might be able to support with that. The active travel team are looking at a shared space campaign, and they had a workshop in October on this. So this is looking at how to navigate space where pedestrians and cyclists interact. So that's something that is in train. I know that they're working on it. I don't have the timeline for that, but there is work happening on that, and they do plan to have a campaign coming out of that suggestion. And I suppose, to flag that while we don't have an enforcement role as Dublin City Council, we do promote the use of the cycle lane. We're working with the schools. We work with the public through social media and sharing, the positive behaviour that we want to see. So all of that is happening, and I think sometimes behaviour change takes a while to kick in. The cycle lane is still relatively new, and people have the habits of cycling on the footpath. So we would hope that over time, as people get used to it, more and more people will use the cycle lane.
Thanks, Deirdre. Alec, have you any other further comments?
Yes, councillors. Maybe I'll just start possibly with just addressing Councillor Heaney's sort of issue, and saying that she doesn't know herself, but she's receives complaints that the cycle lane is substandard. I know it's another question further down the motion, so maybe I can address it now, as it was brought up already.
Which motion?
I think it's where is it now? It's further down. It's motion
H.
It's motion H. Yes, exactly.
Okay. So we're happy to take them together. Yeah. Okay. Is that agreed, members?
Yeah. Yeah. Just to say on that, like, I think personally, the Griffith Avenue scheme is probably one of the better cycling schemes in the city. It's a lot for large sections of it. We're talking about 3.5 kilometres long between where it starts there on Ballygall Road to east as far as the Malahide Road. So we're talking a long section, and we have cycle lanes on both sides of the road. And for the majority of it, it is of a high quality standard. It's a protected cycle lane. It's continuous. It's got coloured surfacing, and it's considerably better than what was there before. I think if council can remember, where we had just parking both sides of the road for the entire length of Griffith Avenue. So I accept that there are places where we've had to make compromises because we're catering for the residents parking in areas on the road, or we're catering for the fact that we're working within a restricted boundary where we have trees on either side of the road, and we didn't take out any trees. But overall, I think it's of high quality. Now, I do accept that we do have problems with the maintenance of it, and I know that the cleansing responded to that separately, and it's an issue. It's an ongoing issue. It was an issue before we put in the cycle lane. It continues to be an issue, but it's something that needs to obviously it does impact on the quality of it, especially during the winter months. As far as just on the counts end of things, we have permanent counters on a section of the route. We've had them there for well over a year now, and we get figures, monthly counts. We're over 12,500 counts for cyclists using it, and that's going in both directions, but that's on a monthly average. So, and those figures continue to rise. I think comparison to the The Clontarf City Centre scheme, I think, is a bit unfair. This is a very low budget scheme in the sense of we were trying to get in something fast. It started during COVID. It started off with an interim scheme where we just put in bollards and took the space for cyclists. And we've elaborated on that over the course of the years. So it's improving the quality all the time. But it really isn't the same thing at all. And certainly the budget is nothing like what was available for the Clontarf City Centre. As far as the road safety audit, phase 3, we've actually only recently, and I say recently, in the last couple of weeks, finished the last of the surfacing on Griffith Avenue. We did it there on the final section there down near the schools. We had to wait for the new junction into Griffith Woods to be completed before we could go in there and complete the route. But now the route is complete, and so at this stage, what we would plan to do is complete a road safety audit on the entire scheme early in January, and that will pick up, hopefully, if there are any issues that need to be addressed, we'll address them at that stage.
Okay.
I think the only other thing I really wanted to talk about was Councillor Stocker mentioned the cycle marking on the footpaths. And there are sections where we do have shared footpaths and cycle lanes on Griffith Avenue in the vicinity of the schools. It was always the intention that once the scheme was finished and it was established, that we would look to remove those and we have to consider, though, it is a bit complex, because obviously at the moment what we seem to be doing is we seem to be attracting the commuters onto the cycle lanes, and while a lot of the kids, especially younger kids traveling with their parents, etc., are continuing to use the shared space in the vicinity of the school. Now, we have to be careful because we don't want to discourage that activity, and at the same time we want to, I suppose, persuade and encourage people to use the cycle lanes. So that's going to take a little bit of time, but certainly it is the long-term objective to remove the shared facilities. I think that's all I have to say on this at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, colleagues, I'm quite keen that we move on with time. I've spent enough time on this now, so
I'm happy
30 seconds, and I'm
well, sorry, you know,
I need 30
seriously,
seconds.
I'm sorry.
Issue that I need a right reply on, and I'm happy to take both motions together. First of all, just to pick up the last comment about being unfair. Sorry, I want to find a solution here. Like, I am a cyclist. I can't wait for the cycleway to be introduced onto Collins Avenue East. I can't wait. You know, I'm a supporter of cycleway infrastructure, but there is a problem on the Griffith Avenue section in Drumcondra, and I'm just asking questions to try and understand it. As I said, I'm not an expert. I did neglect to say, Councillor, that when I'm out cycling, I've gotten a basket on the front of my bike, a metal basket, so it probably is a bit heavier than it used to be, and it might make it more difficult to navigate. I just find parts of the cycleway infrastructure on Griffith Avenue, the little things at the edge that pop up, you know, these little tiny bollards, it makes me feel, you know, I'd be better off cycling elsewhere. Yeah, that's just me. I'm not an expert on it. The other thing is, I would really appreciate if we could collaborate with everybody in the office. I'm not trying to cause problems. I'm trying to find solutions. There obviously are issues. And in terms of what I said about Joanna O'Sullivan earlier on, it's an example of where her ideas are coming from in terms of the leaves. But the leaves are only there 3 months of the year. There is issues at other times of the year where people are cycling other than in the cycleway. So look, I fully support cycleway infrastructure. I think the educational piece is really beneficial, but we need to make sure that it's, I suppose, shared with everybody concerned, because there are people on Griffith Avenue, for good or for bad, who believe a huge amount of money was put into something, and I'm glad we're having this conversation about it, because it is an issue that I would love, as do my colleagues, want to see resolved. Gurmila Magov.
Councillor Farrell, 30 seconds, Councillor Nisha, and 30 seconds each, and that's it. I will cut you off.
Yeah, again, I want to thank Councillor Heaney for bringing forward this motion. It's difficult from Councillor Heaney's point of view. It's difficult being a councillor supporting cycleways and then wanting to ask questions about them. That's very difficult. You know, but the question I want to ask was, while active travel are there, I asked a question about the active travel budget. Would they know what percentage of monies are spent from the active travel budget on education? Because this is partly what this is about. What is the active travel budget altogether, and what percentage of that, what money is spent on education? Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, very briefly, Chair. I would be very slow to remove the option for young kids to cycle from Charlemont Estate on the footpath to the schools, because that is a learning area for young kids with their parents. So, you know, I know we just need to find a way to do that. Everywhere else is, I think we can look at, but that particular location, and I think Alec knows that. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Cooney.
Just to thank Alex, and I think he did an excellent job with the resources that he had, and I really favour having a cycleway there. I would also agree with Councillor. I think that I need to have a little area that's a training area. If we could demark that in some other markings, like we have the shared space in the parks, that it's for slow cyclists and young kids, you know, some sort of signage or marking on the pavement. Maybe we could have a colourful painting on the pavement, you know, to make it out. It's a sort of the children's learning cycleway or something like that, to make it for young children. And just I suppose just to say that could I have an answer in relation to the car parkings and drivings on the pavement, if anything could be done to rectify that in terms of an engineering solution to that, if possible.
Thanks. Alec, just on Damien's question, have you got a figure off to hand?
I am not with active travel. I think there's been a misunderstanding here. Myself and Deirdre both work for the traffic section, so you would have to approach them separately about that.
I'll refer that on. I'll refer the area office on. Okay. Okay, colleagues, is that agreed? Agreed. Okay, we move on. And thanks for your time, Alec and Deirdre.
Look, just for clarity, can I just check that both B and H have been agreed?
Yes, that's correct, Fiona. Item. Yeah, no, I referred it on to the area office to ask them to take it offline. Item 7.